We have a packed agenda when we're talking about curriculum because there's just a lot of really cool stuff that you guys have access to, and I really want to make sure I touch on it um, so that you are utilizing the curriculum, to the best of your ability, the way it's most helpful for you. Okay. So again, I'm Shannon McKenzie. If I haven't met you yet, hello. And if I have met you, good to see you, even though I only see one person on the screen. I know how we are. We don't always put ourselves on the screen. That's okay. I see some names on there, but welcome, guys. So you are here for the curriculum orientation. So with the grant, with the Maryland Teacher Pathway Grant, you get access to the Educators Rising curriculum. And for us in the state of Maryland, here's my contact information as well. By now, you've seen this so many times, you probably have it memorized, but I want you to save it, have it handy. If you have any questions about curriculum or anything, please contact me. So as part of the grant, you get the curriculum for free. As Educators Rising teacher leaders, you have lots of resources in the portal and on the website that are just free, accessible things that you can use. And we'll talk about that in a second. But the curriculum is something that is usually a paid product for school systems for their pathway classes. So for example, we have TAM and we have like the CDA early childhood. If we didn't have like a set pathway, like a TAM curriculum, we could use the EdRISIng curriculum as our pathway curriculum. So instead of, applying or whatever, paying for or using the CDA curriculum, let's say, we would use the EdRISIng curriculum. In Maryland, of course, we do have a curriculum that is mandatory for us to use in TAM or CDA early childhood. So it's not going to be utilized in the capacity that some other states might use it. So for example, Texas uses the curriculum across their entire state, EdRISIng curriculum for their pathway classes. So it is a complete packaged curriculum for a teacher pathway. But because we do have we have other required curriculum here in Maryland, it is simply going to be a resource for us. Okay. So as pathway teachers, most of you are pathway teachers. Some of you are a teacher leader for just a chapter only version of Educators Rising, which is completely fine. I will be referring to the curriculum a lot in terms of pathway, but you as a chapter only chapter, I guess, as a EdRISing chapter that meets outside of like a pathway, at a school, you can use the curriculum too. And we would love for you to use it as well. And I'll get to the point where we talk about that also. But we are all, as a pathway teacher, or even as an Educators Rising teacher leader for a chapter, you're here because you are, exposing students to the teaching career, encouraging these guys to become teachers so that we can all retire one day, right? We need people to come and take our jobs so that we can relax and hang out with our grandkids. So that is, the issue, the problems that we're facing. And then today we're going to be talking about the curriculum part of the 5 C's. Educators Rising offers, they kind of stand by these 5 C's that they offer: chapters, curriculum, competitions, conference, and community. And we're going to be talking about the curriculum C. If you have met with me already about chapters, we talked about chapters. We will talk a little bit about competitions today too, but competitions is a whole other, topic. But curriculum is its own like entity and has a lot of information that we need to share about that too. So if you've met with me already about chapters, then that was primarily about how to start a chapter. Like, where do we even begin and how do we start? And I have like a whole checklist for you and some helpful tools that help with that. If you have not done the chapter training, please sign up for that so that you can have that information now when you need it. You're starting your chapters now. Just a little grant overview for you guys. Some of you have come into this sort of, I'd like to say last minute, but sort of Hartford County and Frederick County in particular came on near the end of the summer. Some of these trainings happened over the end of the school year, kind of getting everybody ready for this school year, if that makes sense. So just to kind of update you on the grant itself, we are in year 2 of the grant. So this is a 3-year grant. So we are starting the 25-26 school year. And that means that you guys are part of year 2. Now, it is your first year. So I know it's a little confusing when we talk about that. I know I talked to Audrey about that a little bit because I call it year 2 or cohort 2. But it's really your first year, and we understand that, but it's year 2 of the grant. The first year was last year, and we only had 12 schools registered. And to be honest, it really wasn't really a full year because we were given the grant in October of 2024. I wasn't even hired then. And then in January of 2025, political climate changed because we had a new president, and all of the federal grants shut down. So like then there was no grant, and then there was a grant again come in March. So it just was really confusing. So we didn't even really make that much progress in year 1. So to be honest, I feel like year 2 is our real year, and I'm excited that you guys are getting to join then, like now when we actually have our bearings and we're really kind of, ready to go. So don't feel like you missed anything because you really didn't. Honestly, I swear. And then next year is the last year of the grant, and it's going to be similar to this year, except there will be even more schools opened up. So this year, for year 2, we have 35 schools, and next year we're hoping to have 70 schools. So I will be spread very thin, but I'll be working with you guys as my 35 schools, and then next year we'll have some more schools to work with. In year 1, we were successful in doing, some things. It was kind of a foundational year with an on again, off again, on again, off again in terms of the funding and what was allowable. But we were able to, launch new chapters in all 12 of the schools. We were, focused on engaging, teacher leaders to, to help them figure out this whole process. But we registered 178 students. We had 8 scholarships granted for students to go to the national conference. We had, curriculum orientations and start your chapter sessions. We had those initial chapters had leaders that they picked. And then we started the foundation for what will be our internship process this year that we were going to do. So we were able to do quite a bit. We also got the entire Baltimore City schools, that each of them has a pathway. We were able to get all of them for the first time ever to attend the Maryland State Conference, which it's kind of huge because they had never been to the conference before, and it was just really special to have the whole, like every school that had a pathway. There's 5 schools that have pathways in the city. We were able to sponsor them and get them to the conference, so that was fun. So here are just the responsibilities and benefits. You've kind of seen this in various forms across these trainings and meetings that we've had, but essentially you're going to, set up a chapter. You're going to make sure you have students in your chapter. You're going to use the resources that we're sharing with you at these meetings. You're going to try to get your students to the Maryland conference, to the national conference. We're going to provide your students with some work-based learning. The good thing about Maryland is that we're pretty strong in that area already. The TAM has a mandatory part that is a work-based learning opportunity, the internship piece, and so does the CDA. So either of the pathways that you are teaching already has an internship built into it, but we are going to be offering students a paid opportunity to do some work-based learning, and we'll get into that as the grant continues on and we figure out the details on that. There's teacher stipends for you guys. So each semester you'll get a $500 stipend as long as you meet these requirements. And then most of all, I am here because of the grant. So I am trying to give you guys a really strong foundation so that when the grant goes away, or if the grant goes away, there's some talk that it may continue. But if the grant goes away, you'll still be able to have a chapter and you'll still be able to thrive and do all these wonderful things with your students. So that's kind of the idea, is to get you guys really ready to go. So these are some of the responsibilities. Obviously, you're going to attend meetings with me, these training sessions, and then our PLC meetings, which are just once a month. Moving forward, I think these quote unquote training sessions will just be held during our PLC meetings. But these were initially set up so that you could have access to the curriculum and the other learning about a chapter, so that they were separated out from a PLC. You're going to, that's basically it for that stuff. You're going to register your students before November 1st. You're going to conduct meetings, well-planned, regularly scheduled meetings, encourage your students to be involved as much as possible, and then use our materials to support the process. This is very wordy, so I'm kind of summarizing it. And then for students with the student learning opportunities, you're going to obviously, again, encourage them to go to the Maryland Conference, compete in competitions, help students that are competing at both Maryland States and Nationals to prepare for that the best you can. And I'm here to support that as well, because many of you will be new in that regard as well. And then, try to encourage them to get to Oregon, Portland, Oregon, where we all want to go for nationals. And then just continue to offer them the exploration of, being in the teaching career. And then there's just some data support that you need to provide for us. It's really very minimal. By having the students register as students into the portal, we'll have, some basic data that they self-report, what gender they are, if they want to put their race, whatever. They don't have to do that. It is self-reportable. So we may have some information there that will help us to focus the grant in a particular, on a particular trend. However, what we typically would describe as a focused grant need is very frowned upon right now. So for example, when the grant was first written, it was written in a way that stated that we wanted to make sure that we were getting high school students into the teaching career that matched the students that we are all teaching, right? So that we have students that are represented by their gender and their race and, their first language and all of those things. So that was a primary goal. And one of the things I think most of us teachers really do support, that information had to be pulled out of the grant, because with this presidency, they do not want us tracking that kind of data and, sort of discriminating or highlighting those things. So now it doesn't really matter what gender or race anybody is. But we all know that, as teachers here in Maryland, that we do want to support a very diverse teaching workforce coming up. So that is something that, just keep in the back of your mind. But that kind of demographic information is not important anymore in the grant. Originally, that would have been shared with us or requested, but it's not any longer. So the kind of things that you'll share here, this is again very wordy, but the kind of things that I'll want to know is how many people are coming to your meetings? How many people do you have registered? What can we do to get more students registered? How many people, want to do competitions, and how can we get more? Like those kind of things, really more anecdotal things, not things like how many, I might ask how many boys or girls you have. I always love to hear about the boys in the programs, because I, notoriously, I always had lots of female students. But it's always fun when I hear about programs that have large male population. I just personally get excited about that. But sorry, I'm chewing on this lifesaver again. My throat is a little scratchy today, guys. I apologize. So just like anecdotal things you can just kind of tell me, informally. You don't have to report to these things. It's just really going to be maybe to help support the program, right? The needs in your program. If you have a lot of ELL students, ELD students in your program, how can I support you with the Para-Pro? Is there, is there a study guide in Spanish? That kind of thing. It's not really going to be like stuff that we report on the grant. It's really going to be more about your program and really helping you guys, be successful in your chapters. Okay. Oops, it went back. So that's the grant update. If anybody has questions about the grant, now you've heard it kind of from all different angles. If you have any more questions about your responsibilities or about anything that I just kind of reviewed, just let me know. So when we talk about curriculum, this is what we're talking about, and it is a lot of resources, okay? So many of these things do not require a paid subscription to Educators Rising. And just so you know, the curriculum is usually about $16,000 per site per year for the curriculum, which is crazy expensive, right? And why Maryland doesn't have it. So it's like, it would be like, in Harford County, like 10 schools, it would be $160,000, right? For them to purchase the curriculum. So you're getting, an amazing opportunity to be able to use this curriculum for free. Again, you're not going to use it to its whole capacity in terms of like lesson one, month one, and go down and do it that way, because obviously we have other curriculum that we have to use. So these are all going to be resources for you. But we do want you to use the curriculum as part of the grant, as a requirement of the grant in some way, shape, or form, because this is going to help us continue to build out a curriculum that these states need, right? If somehow we just stop using TAM, or if, MSDE decides, MSDE decides they don't want to use TAM anymore, or they don't want to use the CDA anymore, and they're like going to go the EdRISIng route, and they're going to get all this money to pay for it, or whatever. They work out a deal with EdRISIng. We want to make sure that the curriculum is like a perfect match for Maryland, right? So we're going to get that feedback from you guys and kind of figure out what works and what doesn't work for Maryland. Right off the bat, the first thing that doesn't match perfectly is the human development portion, right? The child and adolescent development piece of either the TAM, which is the TAM 1 course, or the CDA first course as well. There is not a large child development, human development component of the EdRISIng curriculum. So that's the first thing that doesn't align perfectly. So EdRISIng knows that if that were ever to be a situation where Maryland was going to use that either needs to be changed on the Maryland side to not include that, or we would include, EdRISIng would build something to help with that. Anyway, so there's slideshows, there's articles, there's videos, there's competitions and micro-credentials, there's apprenticeship, sort of, they call it clinical experiences, sort of framework, lesson assessments, and then, all of the stuff, okay? That should say next steps. All right, so let's talk about the curriculum itself. So this is just kind of a picture that sums up all of the different things that there are. We're going to get into it. These are the EdRISIng standards that they follow when they have written their curriculum, and you'll see aligned in all of their sort of curriculum slides. They go with these standards. These match very closely with, the standards we're all using, right? And also they match a lot, very, very closely with the National Board certification. So what's kind of cool is that students will have seen these standards. Let's just say, Texas schools, they will have seen these standards and work with these standards their whole high school careers. They become teachers, and then they go for the National Board. They're like, oh, these are like so similar to the National Board standards. I know these standards, like I'm familiar with these standards. So I think that's really cool that that's aligned. The courses are set up in like a 2-year pathway. So there's year 1 and year 2 for the Educators Rising curriculum. However, there is so much content that it can be spread out for all 4 years, right? So you will see when we get in there that it is not just a 2-year program. There's ways, I don't know how anybody ever really does it in 2 years, because there's so much content, but it is set up for like a 2-year program. So if we ever had to, and Maryland is changing the way that they're doing their CTE pathways. If we were going to use the EdRISIng curriculum, we very easily could use a 2-year design. So each lesson is so each lesson is, and I'm going to kind of interchange these. So the lesson itself is a PowerPoint. So like one whole lesson is like a slide deck, right? So let's just say there's a slide deck about professionalism, okay? So professionalism is a slide deck that's a lesson, okay? So when I say a lesson, I'm referring to a slide deck or a PowerPoint, and they are PowerPoint slides. So they're not Google, they're PowerPoint. You can, of course, bring them into whatever program you want to, but they are set up as Microsoft PowerPoint. So there's 2 choices. There's a 3-day PowerPoint and a 1-day PowerPoint. So That is so that, of course, this is rolled out to the entire country. If and programs are set up differently. So I met with my students every day for about 45 minutes, right? But you may have a block schedule and you meet with them for 120 minutes, I don't whatever, like however many minutes, that you 150 minutes or something like that. Or you may only see them 2 days a week. It may work like that. You may see your kids in a block schedule, and it's all, the whole course is crammed into one semester, right? And then the next semester is the higher level course. So everybody does it differently. Even across Maryland, it's set up differently. So the 1 day and 3 day PowerPoints gives you a lot of flexibility, right? So you can decide what portions you want to use. And especially when we're talking about using this as a resource, right? Because you are not going to use the entire slide deck the way that you might, but you are probably not going to use the entire slide deck the way that it's set up, because you have some TAM stuff you want to throw in, or some other resources you want to throw in. So that's just a little bit about how it's set up. I would suggest, a little caveat here is, I would suggest that everybody choose the 3 day PowerPoint when you're starting to look at it. And that seems like, why would you do that? I'm never going to teach a whole 3 days of the same lesson, because when it says 3 days, it's basically like a week-long topic, right? So you're going to do professionalism for a week. And in that week, there's enough slides, those 3 days, to last you basically 5 days, or the 2 days that you do it, or the 3 days that you do it, however you see your students. But you're probably not going to teach them. You're probably going to really only use one day of the slides, or one portion of the slides, and that's okay. But I like to make that decision for myself as the teacher. I don't want Educators Rising to cut down the slides and just choose the 1 day topic that they think is most important. I want to look at the whole professionalism, what's offered by Educators Rising, the whole professionalism slide deck, and say, oh, I love what they have here for day 3. I'm going to use that for a 1 day slide, right? You will, if you just look at the 1 day slide, you will already get the skimmed down version, which is fine. And if that works better for you, I personally like looking at the 3 day and deciding for myself what matched better for me. And this is the slideshow design. It's consistent every single slide deck. So weekly, you say, there's a title slide, there's lesson objective slide, and there's day 1, day 2, and day 3. And then there's a revisit the objective slide, and then a references slide. So as you can see, day 1 has a warm-up slide, has some content slides, activity slides, and then a formative assessment. Same thing for day 2, a warm-up, content, activity, formative assessment. Day 3, warm-up, content, activity, formative assessment. It's very consistent. I personally absolutely love that, because when I was using these on a regular basis, that's the system I got into. They were used to, I would have the warm-up on the screen when they came in, kind of like, as people call it, bell work or whatever, when you're answering and giving out a pass to this kid to go there, to the counselor, you're getting attendance or whatever. They would have the warm up on the screen, and they knew right to get started on whatever it was. Have a group discussion, do the sticky notes, whatever it is, walk around the room. That would be on the screen for them, and they came in. So I got into the rhythm of that sort of situation. And then at the end of a lesson, there's like a little assessment. Formative assessment can be like, think of it like an exit ticket. It could also be your assignment, right? You can tie it to an assignment. They can type into a reflection box, something on Canvas, or whatever. So you can kind of think of it that way too. But that's how that consistency is super helpful, because it just helps you to keep it in your mind, the consistent schedule of how it's set up. So it's an example of what a lesson objective slide looks like here. It's very clean, very easy to read. I hit the lesson objectives hard. And I know it seems really funny, because like a math teacher or an English teacher, they're usually, and I think it's getting better, but like, so I think ever since they were in kindergarten, it would be like on the board, right? Or somewhere in the room. It had to be, because for our school system, they, make us post it somewhere, right? So the students are funny, because they've seen these for years, but they have no idea that this is what they're actually doing as a teacher, right? So I always hit these super hard, and I read these and I say, rising educators, that's you, will be able to blah, 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 blah at the end. Because when they write their lesson objectives, when they go to write them for the preschoolers, because we had a preschool in our site, Oh, somebody would. Oh, okay. Um, so anyway, so they so that they were like hearing this really emphasized, and they're always like, why is she saying that? Why is she telling us that stuff so much? The older students or the higher level students always got it. But the first year students were always like, okay, we get it. We're gonna be able to whatever, evaluate this. But it's because they've seen them so much on the board or even have their math teacher. Now they know they're actually going to be having to make a lesson that does that. And I was over dramatic about it and made it like a big deal. But I love that these lesson objectives are already included. I didn't have to think of them because it's one more step. I mean, obviously we could do this in our sleep, right? But they're there for us. They're already, written. And, it really does model uh, effective, lesson planning when you have that objective to begin with, right? So we want to make sure that we're doing that. Teacher and student lesson notes. This is so cool. So this is what I call, and this dates me because I know some of my young teachers out there aren't going to get this, but they used to have these books called like AOL for Dummies or or Computers for Dummies or something like that. I don't think they have them anymore because it's probably not very appropriate to call us dummies. But anyway, they had these books that really like dumbed down whatever the topic was, right? So it could be like, you know, programming for dummies or whatever. That those books is what I think of when I look at this. And I know that seems weird. You're probably like, why is she saying that? That's because every lesson topic has a box that says teacher notes, notes to students, or discussion activity note. Well, mostly everyone has teacher notes and then notes for students, and then there's a discussion activity thing if there's something in there that goes there, and then a reference thing. This is in the notes section of the PowerPoint, and I'm going to show you this live. But what I love about this is the teacher notes. This is just something that you're going to know. Like you just read this, it's like preparation. It gives you some background on what you're teaching about. If you don't know, which you do know because you've been doing this for a while. And then there's notes for students. The notes for students section is basically like a script. You basically could read that script or read those words to the students as you're looking at that slide. Now, you don't want to do that because your kids will like lose complete interest and they'll get bored, whatever. You want to make it a little bit more jazzy. But however, however you set your classroom up, there's notes there. So for example, you may plan this a month ahead of time, right? And you're like, oh my gosh, I'm teaching this EdRISING lesson. I totally forgot to revisit it. Let me read these this morning just to kind of go over it. It's so much information is there for you already that you are just going to love that, because like you wake up and you're like completely forgot like what you even planned last week, which happens. And you're like, oh yeah, okay, I remember now because it's all written there for you. Here's another take on this, which I absolutely love. These lessons are so like impact, like they're so, I can't think of the right word, but they're all such a package that your higher level students. So what I would do sometimes is I would assign to my level 3s per se, or even my interns, and say, guys, you're going to be teaching the professionalism lesson from Educators Rising. And then you're going to be teaching the classroom behavior one or whatever, and assign them to these groups and have them go through these slides that are provided by EdRISING and read the teacher notes. They would get all the information they needed, even though they hadn't been teaching for 120 years. They would get all the information they needed about that content from the notes section, so they could confidently teach that to their peers. So you could even assign these to the students to actually teach to the other students, like to the level 1. And it's such a great experience for them to follow a packaged curriculum, because again, that happens a lot in school systems. We think, everybody thinks when they first start out teaching, they're going to be going on Pinterest and finding all these fun lessons to do with their kindergartners. And my daughter's a kindergarten teacher, and she's always like, I want to do this pumpkin hamper thing. I'm like, okay, what about Benchmark? What about Eureka? Like they give you the content that you have to teach. And so she still does that fun stuff, by the way, because she's an amazing kindergarten teacher. But I'm just saying the school system provides you with this content that you have to teach. So that's kind of a practice in this too. This gives them, hey, this is what they're telling you have to teach. Slides prepared, notes prepared, read it, be an expert on it, and teach it to your peers, right? So I love doing that switcheroo with these slides. But anyway, it's all there for them. Like it's like teaching for dummies. And then every lesson, every PowerPoint, slide deck has a guided notes worksheet that goes along with that lesson. So again, we're talking about professionalism. That's the topic, right? Professionalism will have its own guided notes worksheet for just that lesson that the students can, is that like it's a PDF, you can load it to Canvas, you can load it to Google Classroom or Schoology, or any of the ones that I don't even know, Blackboard, any of the LMSs that are I wish Maryland had a similar one, because I tell you, I also wish Maryland as a whole would either ban Google or allow everybody to use Google, because it would make my life so much easier. Every school system has a different system. Anyway, I digress. This is a PDF that you can upload to your LMS that goes with the lesson that you're teaching. So you can attach it as an assignment. They can take notes on your PowerPoints, however you want to do it. And on your slide deck, there will be this little like burgundy, maroon, red clipboard showing them, hey, if you're not paying attention to anything, pay attention to this slide, because you're going to have something to fill out with that. Some people have the students open up their Chromebooks and have this guided notes worksheet, and they go through the slides and they say, okay, now answer the question on, answer section 1 question, and have them type in. I didn't do it that way because I would lose my students. Everybody worked at a different pace. Having the Chromebook open was always a distraction. So I uploaded it to Canvas, and then I would say, we would do our little slide presentation. I would say, okay, and now you need to complete the guided notes worksheet for today's lesson, right? So they would go in, I would always link the PowerPoint slide in the Canvas so they could see it again and go through it if they needed to, but then they would answer the questions later, like after the slide deck presentation, because I didn't want to lose them in the middle and have some people typing, not typing, paying attention. I didn't know what section they were on, whatever was happening. But you can do it however you feel comfortable. But what I love about it is it's PDF typable, right? So those little box where it says name at least one reason, it opens up, and then you type in your answers in that box, which makes it so user-friendly and so amazing. And then this is just a little bit more about it. This is what a slide looks like that has a clipboard on it, right? So it says here, blah, 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 information. And then anytime you see that little icon, that means there's something for you to fill out later, or something for you to fill out on the guided notes worksheet. Okay. And then this is kind of what a warm-up would look like. So what does it mean to begin with the end in mind? Remember those, that's like bell ringers, everybody calls them something different, but like that sort of thing that you have in your class when they first come in, or, whenever you want to use it. Maybe you're going to open up a class discussion about this, and it gives you like the questions, and then have them like what they talk about. I had my kids working in groups. So I would have group 1, 2, 3, and 4, and they would have table talk time, and then they could all, put the sticky notes about their discussion on these, on the things around the room, or they could discuss it with another group and talk about it, that kind of thing. So that's the kind of, and we got into a rhythm of how we would do it, think, pair, share, all the different ways that you can do that and sort of model those sort of sharing, ideas for the kids. And then there's a content topic area again. So this is like what a slide would look like. And there's like a little red clipboard that tells them that there's something to fill out later, another content kind of slide. And then there's an activity to do. So this is something that you're going to want to, select a sequence of lessons, write individual lesson plans, select create learning activities. So there's an activity that's tied to the topic that you're teaching. Also has a little red clipboard because that activity is also on a PDF fillable form or whatever. Scenarios. Okay, guys, listen, I am a big scenario fan. And the reason I am a big scenario fan, especially in Maryland, is that TAM, depending on how you do it, but TAM just overall does not have a lot of access to kids until they're, till their 4th year, till their senior year, to that 4th class, whatever year that ends up being, but that internship class. So years 1, 2, and 3, or classes 1, 2, and 3, there's no built-in time with students. Now, you may be doing an amazing job. I hear about TAM teachers all over the state doing amazing things, partnerships with elementary schools and activities and after school things and community service. And I love that for you guys, because that is what you need to be doing. These students need to be having hands-on experiences with children, right? They've decided that maybe they want to be a teacher. We need to get them with some kids, right? Students. We need to get them in their content areas, math, music, whatever it is. We need to get them that experience so that they can make a more educated decision about this career and not just hear you talk about it and play in the classroom about, doing these things. They need to have access to students. So scenarios, and you and I could write scenarios again until we're purple. We could come up with every scenario, behavior management scenario, upset parent scenario, student with disability scenario, all the things. We've experienced all of them in our time, but it takes time to write a scenario, and it takes time to make sure it matches an objective and all of that stuff. They've done so many for us. This is so amazing. But not only have they written the scenarios, they have given us the discussion questions. So once they write the scenario, they have the questions that go with it. So students can read the scenario and then do the discussion questions. And I do think scenarios are a great way for them to practice that thinking as if they were in a classroom or thinking as if they're working with those students. It's not a perfect match to being in a classroom with students or working directly with students and families, but it definitely gives them that feel for it. And I love, love, love what they've done with our scenarios. They've done a really good job of making sure that the scenarios match what the content is, and they've given us the questions because literally we would have to read the scenario and make up our own questions. And again, even if they've written the scenario for us, then we have to go back and make the questions, right? Well, we don't even have to do that. So again, teaching for dummies. They've given us the questions. Yay, love that. And then the last day is, the end of the slide deck is a formative assessment. So if you're talking about professionalism and you maybe have you maybe have the whole topic of professionals, I don't even know, TAM or CDA and this, you can use these formative assessments to kind of judge. You've matched your things together, but you can use these formative assessments, if you use the whole 3-day slide, and you want to just judge what they know about backwards planning or if they got the objectives, right? And again, this is really important to kind of point out to the students in a different capacity as a teacher and saying, okay, now this assessment is going to tell me whether or not you got that content, whether you're where you need to be, or if I need to reteach this to you, right? That saying those things to our students is super important because when they get to that point and they have to think of a formative assessment, they have to be able to judge, did this student get, making groups of 5, counter bears or whatever. They need to judge whether their students were actually able to get that objective. So these formative assessments will tell them that's something they need to plan for at the end of their lessons as well. So this is just really, kind of a good framework for how we want to be, best practice teachers. So this is just a little implementation kind of map, I guess. There's 3-day lessons, 1-day lessons, etc. And you can do the 3-day PowerPoints and then the lesson assessment on the 4th day. If you have a 5-day implementation, you can do day 5 can be a project-based learning activity, and they also have project-based learning activities. And actually, the competitions are really good for project-based learning, but we will get into that in a second. But this is just kind of the framework of how EdRISING is set up their implementation. Too many words there. We're going to skip that. So other things that you have access to. This is a magazine written specifically for Educators Rising. It's Kappa Magazine. And it is there's a student edition for the students that is really well done. Super research-based articles, super easy to read. I say a TikTok version of a magazine or a TikTok version of articles. It's not that engaging. However, it does have a lot of color, it does have a lot of photos. It has some very consistent, we're going to look at it in just a second, but it has some very consistent processes. There's a little highlights box, there's resources, there's, it's consistent over and over again. So they'll get used to it. It is a great resource for you to use as part of your curriculum. Maybe you want to pull out an article on a topic and you want to just, teach that topic and just have them read an article. Maybe you're going to be absent. Maybe you have to have a sick day, got to go for your mammogram or whatever. You can have them read an article and do the discussion questions that they already wrote for us for every article. So we don't even have to, we should, we don't even have to read the article because the discussion questions are already made for us. So good. Love that. Okay. So this is just an example of what we see, the discussion questions right here for the article, right? So you click on this article and this is what's going to pop up. This is the magazine, right? The little Cap'n magazine. It is colorful, nice, and get down to the actual articles. The article has an at a glance section so they can kind of read the cliff notes, what it's about. Again, pictures, they're short. They're just like, two-page articles. There's some background on this topic. This topic is chronic absenteeism. So it's very like topical things happening in our schools right now. And then a little background on why this is important for teachers and the discussion questions about that article already written for us. So, what do you know about attendance rates in your school or district? If available, look up the data and see the trends before and since pandemic. Great questions. Really amazing, tied to the article. This would be a really easy lesson plan for a sub to implement. You load this article, you tell your kids to read it and answer the discussion questions 1 through 5, or discussion question, each group. Group 1 answers group, one question 1, group 2, question 2, 3, 4, etc. So this is so amazing. I love the Cap'n magazine as part of your curriculum. The Cap'n magazine is free to every teacher leader. So that Cap'n magazine is not tied to our curriculum 16,000. You have access to that. Your students have access to that. So your members, your registered members can go on and just peruse the articles if they just feel like reading something interesting. They can go on and see these articles in their membership portal. So that is a free resource that I would definitely tie into my curriculum and have done. We have a partnership with the Teaching Channel. So as part of your curriculum membership, you do have access to these, like, I don't even know, like so many questions, like 2,000 plus videos of Teaching Channel videos that are on any different subjects. If you just want to, have a discussion about, again, especially TAM programs that don't have access to children. They have really great videos of, teachers in classrooms actually modeling behavior management strategies, actually modeling what they would do to do a picture schedule, all the different things that you might think of to have to talk about. You're going to talk about students with disabilities or communication delays. You can say how to use a first then board, right? You type that into the videos and then first then board videos pop up and then they can show how that is done. So you have access to this. Love this. So many great resources. Podcasts are huge these days. Something that, again, you can, there's so many different subjects. You can tie them into your content, whatever it is. We're going to get to the fact that I've already tied all these in, but there's EduMagic is a free resource to all teacher leaders. So once the curriculum goes away for you after this grant is done, you still have access to the podcast, and they're amazing. They're very engaging. My students love them. I'm amazed at that they will listen to a podcast. They're such visual, on their phone all the time, that listening to a podcast I thought would be boring for them, but they love it. They put their earpods in and they listen to the podcast, or they put their headphones on and listen to the podcast, and they really enjoy it. We actually had them creating podcasts at one point too. So this is really engaging for the students. It's written for the students to listen to. And then there's hot topic articles. Also, these are specific to these topics: college planning, teaching skills, job hunting. This area I love to use, like these articles I like to use in my internship course or my level 3 course. They're kind of that higher level. Okay, you're getting ready to go to college. You're getting ready to, maybe get a summer job in the teaching field, maybe a para job, or you're going to go work at a child care center or something like that. Let's talk about what you're going to do for job hunting, what your resume should look like, that kind of stuff. So these videos are really great for that stage. But you also have that in the TAM program. It's like teaching as a profession, and you talk all about those sort of things. So these articles can tie into that as well. We also have a partnership with the National Board Atlas videos. These videos, to be 100% honest with you, are not my favorite videos. These videos are those videos that, as a national board certified teacher, if any of you are nationally board certified or have gone through that process, you know that you have to like record yourself teaching a math lesson or whatever lesson it is that you were teaching, right? And it's just that. It's you in the front of the room with the kids teaching this lesson. And it's not super engaging. Like the teaching channel videos have like narration and like video changes and transitions and kind of topics. They're short. National board videos are not short. Like it's a whole lesson. But here's what I want to tell you about national board videos that I love. Not necessarily for Maryland, again, or at least the schools that I'm working with in Maryland. But if you are from Nome, Alaska, or like some very rural area, and you know that you don't have access to, you will never have access to preschool students, or your students will never have access to a typical second grade classroom or something like that. Maybe in those very rural schools, they have like first through third together, right? Or, 5 through 6 together, or however they have it situated. These will give you a standard view of what a second grade classroom might look like, where it's all second grade students doing a second grade Common Core subject, that kind of thing. So in those cases, again, in the absence of having actual students to work with, these can be very informative. I do feel like my kids lose interest because they're basically watching, this lesson that is not their level, and it just kind of is. It's there. You guys can use it if you want to. So let's get into what we really want to talk about for the grant. Programming expectations for the curriculum. Like you're like, what do I even have to do with this curriculum? Like what's required, what's not required? What we would like to see you do is at least once a month, use some curriculum piece, right? Use something in your stuff to kind of test it out. So, if let's just say you're, teaching the TAM 1 course and you have to talk about adolescent development. I don't even know I don't know what the topics are, but I was a CDA. I was an early childhood course. So I'm not as familiar with the TAM curriculum, but let's say you have to talk about something like developmentally appropriate practice or something like that. Okay. So you got to talk about that. And you're like, geez, I've been teaching this for years. I use the same stuff. That's actually a really engaging subject. So this would not be the case. But I lose my kids every time I'm going to change my topic. Sorry. Because developmentally appropriate practice, there's so many fun things to do that you do with your kids that's not a good one. Let's talk about ethics. Let's say at some point you have to teach about ethics in the classroom, right? Ethics as a teacher. Kind of a boring subject, kind of important subject, especially right now. And you can really point this out that right now teachers are getting sort of in trouble for their social media, what's appropriate to talk about in front of on social media or in front of your class about your political views, all of those things. So anyway, ethics as a teacher. You're like, I've been teaching this for years. The TAM content is great, but I always lose my students. It's not that engaging. I know I need some help with that one. I've been meaning to look things up, but I really just haven't had time to do that. I'm going to see what EdRISING has for ethics, because that's a topic I need to kind of zhuzh up my stuff. I want to make my kids have a little bit more engagement. I want to make sure I'm covering that topic, to its full capacity. So you're going to look at EdRISING ethics lessons, and you're going to just you're going to pull up the 3-day slide, and you're going to pull a few things out, and you're going to use that. And then you're just going to kind of tell me how it went, right? We're going to talk about it. We're going to say, oh, how did the ethics lesson go, or whatever. We're going to kind of address it. So you may do that in the month of February. That's when that comes about in TAM. That's maybe what you will teach then. If you're a chapter only, or if you just need some more guidance on what the heck I should be teaching, this will give you an idea of some things that you can do. These are actual lessons in the blue, where you can click on them and it'll take you right to that lesson, and you can have that lesson be your content for that month. It doesn't have to tie into your TAM stuff. You just want to try this out, right? So as a chapter only, you can use this to guide your chapter meeting for the month. Maybe your meeting will be talking about professionalism or classroom management as they're getting ready to go. Some of the students will be going for second semester. You're going to talk about that in February, to talk about how you can manage student behaviors, all of how to get a job, all of those kind of things that you would talk about you could talk about in a chapter meeting. There are PowerPoint slides that you can have and use for your meetings to kind of direct them. And you certainly would not do an entire lesson to its full capacity, even like giving them the formative assessment. But there could be a scenario that you use on that topic. There could be a warm-up that you use on that topic that you use in the membership meeting, right? So there's something about that topic there that could help you guide your membership meeting. This is the good stuff. Okay, so Maryland crosswalks. This is how you're going to really do your actual planning for you in Maryland, TAM teachers, CDA teachers. I have created a crosswalk with TAM courses 1 through 3 and CDA courses, well, really 1 through 4 and 1 through 4. The fourth one is the internship. A little bit open-ended on that one. We'll talk about that later. So here it is. Course 1 for CDA, course 2, course 3, right? And then you go back, course 1, course 2, course 3, and then internship for TAM, right? When you click on this, you're going to see it looks like this. Now, this is not a live view because it is now really full. I'm going to give you a live view because I want you to see the real deal. What are you guys teaching? Put in the chat. Are you guys teaching more TAM or more CDA? Let's just get a view for who is doing what. TAM, okay. TAM, supporting both CDA. Okay, so we got a little bit of everything. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pick the Human Growth and Development, which is the TAM 1 course. Kristen, you're going to see that is similar to the CDA 1 course, right? It's very Human Growth and Development, and then Child and Adolescent Development. Those are like the topics. But I'm going to click on this one because it's similar. And this is a live view of it. Hopefully you see now it says here TAM Course 1. Do you see that on your screen? Okay. So I never know what my boxes are sharing. I have 3 screens, guys. I have way too many screens, but I need that or my brain would not function. Anyway, let me make it a little bigger because this is probably shows up teeny tiny for you guys. But, woo, yeah, that's big. So it says like Human Growth and Development, course 1, right? TAM. What you will see is like these are all the TAM units that you have, the Foundations of Child Study, Historical Perspectives, blah, 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 right? And then you have like the broad topics or themes that you're teaching in those units, right? Domains of development, periods of development, influences on development, whatever. The green column is all of the resources that you have as an EdRISING member. Free stuff, green for go, green for free. All of the free content that matches your topic. So defining child development. There's a Kaplan Student Magazine link from spring of 2025, Understanding Today's Students. That article matches that content area. So you could use that for, that topic. And then for not free, for the stuff that it's free for you right now while we have the grant. And again, the grant may continue after the year 3, but for now, we have it for free. These lessons are all linked directly to the website to bring up that lesson. Now, some of you don't have access to the website curriculum just yet. You may have entered and become a member of EdRISING. I think I sent an email out about doing that to become a teacher leader, but your curriculum tab won't show up until after we get contracts signed. So we're still working on that. Me and Audrey, we're getting gray hair. We're going to have to start dyeing our hair because we're going back and forth on that, but that's okay. Once you have that access, all you have to do all you have to do is click on this. And once you have access and you have, a login, it'll take you right to that lesson. So you don't have to hunt through and find, where's unit 2? Where's unit 3? It takes you right to it. This was my summer passion project. So you can see there's a lot of resources. So let's look down here and say, we want to talk about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Again, maybe you have some great lessons and you do stuff that's really wonderful, but maybe you want to zhuzh it up a little bit. There's a podcast, right? There's some unit lessons there. There's unit 3 lesson, unit 1, unit 8. Click on those lessons and it opens right up to a thing. I'm not going to do that yet. I'm just going to keep showing you how much you have. There's Kaplan Magazine's link. There's competitions. So when you're talking about competitions, you want them to be linked to a content area. Let's use a competition as an assignment. That saves, even if they don't compete. You don't have to compete. I want you to, and you want your kids to compete, but you can use a competition at a completely different time of year than when it's offered in Maryland as an assignment. It has a rubric for you, easy grading. It has all the descriptions and the guidelines for them. It is super easy. It's a project that they can do. It's a group based learning project based learning activity. Amazing. They can do it any time of year. It doesn't have to be when Maryland is competing. So always think about that. Competitions and contests can be used. Podcasts are there. All the way to the right are all the lessons. And then all in the middle are all the free things that you have access to. Okay. And then at the bottom, which is really cool, is the hot topic articles. You can still, and if you want to look for yourself, I've linked the podcast link here so you can kind of look and see, okay, well, she says this, but I'm going to look and see if she has another one on blah, blah, blah. If there's hot topic articles you want, the teaching channel videos there's so many of them that I could not link them. You just go in there and search it for yourself. And then if you want to look at all the Kappa magazines, again, you're like, hey, she listed all these ones, but I want to see if they have one on blah, blah, blah. They're all linked there at the bottom. But the teaching channel videos, please don't forget about that. Go up here, and if you see that you want something on attachment, right? You had to teach something on attachment. You see, I don't have anything for the free there. Go to the teaching channel videos and type in attachment for children or attachment and see what videos come up. And then you'll have some resources you can use. And the teaching channel videos, I don't know if you guys have seen them, but they're really well done. They are short. They're to the point. Oftentimes they have the whole synopsis in the like little thing on the on the side or whatever. So and they even some of them have like discussion questions attached to them. So they're really, really helpful and super engaging. My kids like them. They know they're not going to be watching a 60-minute video whenever I use those. They're great, short little videos on the subject. So this is what you have to help you use the curriculum. Okay. So, back here I said, you want to use these topics to kind of master plan. You don't have to use those because you know what? If you use this and you're going along with your your own required curriculum units, you'll have resources listed right there, okay, that you can use. So that is super helpful, and I love that that you're going to have that. So what you're going to want to do, this is just like the game plan. You obviously, when you're doing your planning, I want you to look at the crosswalk and see how it matches. Look at the lesson I've linked there, see if it's something that you would want to use. If it doesn't look good, doesn't match enough, or you're like, I've already got enough content on what they're talking about, skip that one, go to a different one, go plan it the next unit or the next whatever. And then I would suggest looking at the 3-day when you do that, just so that you have the full view of what they've offered and they haven't cut it down for you themselves, right? You want to be able to make that choice yourself. When you open the slides up, you're going to see in a minute, I'm going to do this live. You will see that the slide deck opens up and then you make it your own. You like give yourself edit access and then it saves to your computer as your own. So you can delete slides, add slides, move slides around, change content, whatever you want to do. You make them your own. So look at a 3-day, cut out the ones you don't want to do, bring them into your regular slides that you're using for that topic, whatever you want to do. Make sure you look at the guided worksheets so that you know what your students are going to be filling out that go with the slide deck. That's what I just said. And then also consider adding all of the other resources. Don't just stop at those lessons. Don't just stop at the PowerPoints. You have so many things that you can use to help you with your pathway. Educators Rising curriculum and resources are amazing. I told you that many states are using just this to prepare their teachers, right? They don't have TAM and they don't have a CDA. So this is just a whole package of preparing teachers. So there are so many things here to help you. Also, don't get overwhelmed by all the things. Just look at the crosswalk. That'll help you. Project-based learning, competitions are project-based learning. And obviously, we really want to encourage our students to do the competitions because, number one, we want them to be having fun and being successful and doing these teacher-based learning experiences that are going to bring them that feeling of success that makes them feel like, oh my gosh, I placed second in the state of Maryland for my lesson plan. Like that's such a big deal for them in their field, right? There is no way to compete as a teacher. Like, how do you compete against other people for lesson planning? Like, how do you get that vibe? You don't really do that in your classroom other than their grades, right? And you don't really compare grades in class. Like, oh, Susie got an A and you got a B. She's number one. Because it doesn't work that way in a classroom. So it's just really special for them to have that feeling. But also, it qualifies them to go to nationals. So competing at the national level is such an experience. And as long as I've been doing this, I keep saying I am doing. This is my first year not in the classroom. I've been teaching a teacher pathway for years and doing an EdRISING chapter in Maryland. And my students are, we're very well prepared to be teachers just based on the curriculum that we had, right? The CDA. However, what made them, or what entice them to keep coming back and to be excited every day was some of the opportunities from EdRISING, to be able to go to these conferences, to be able to meet other people, like-minded people that want to be teachers. Let's be honest, in your school system of like 1,200 kids, let's 2,000 kids, however many kids, however big your school is, you have this small portion of them doing the pathway. Let's say if it's a big program, let's say you have 200. That's how many I had. I had 200 students that were my students in a high school. Some of you don't have that many. But if you have 200 students that want to be teachers, they're in my pathway. I wouldn't say all of those guys wanted to be teachers, but for whatever reason, they were in my class. So that's 200 kids out of 2,000, 2,200 kids in my school. That's not very many. Like they don't have a lot of friends that want to be teachers. They're like onesies, right? They're like the one in their friend group. They're the one in their family. They're the one in their whatever. Whether your program's got 200 kids or whether your program has 50, they're still like this individual student that wants to be a teacher. You get them together in a club of 20 kids. My club, my EdRISING chapter had 50 kids. Again, a huge chapter. I got that way, after years of building it. But that gave them peers in the school that could talk about what other colleges they were thinking about going to, what programs they were going, what scholarships are available for teachers. Even if it's 20 kids, that's 20 kids in that school of 2,000 that are, that can talk about these scholarship opportunities or internship opportunities. Then they go to the state of Maryland and they meet with 500 kids that are doing that. Again, that are also just this one person in their family that wants to be a teacher, or this one person in their friend group that wants to be a teacher. Now they have friends, 500 friends to choose from. Then they go to nationals and they have thousands. Like basically their world just gets bigger and more exciting because they're starting to get a little defeated. Nobody wants to be a teacher. People talk bad about being teachers. It may be their own math teacher that is telling them, don't get into teaching. This is too much work, or this is too much whatever. And they're the negative Nelly in the group in your building. They're the negative colleague that's always talking about how teaching is this and that. Listen, we can all have that conversation. I just choose not to have that conversation with my students. I'm trying to encourage them to be teachers, right? So there are days when things are frustrating, and my students know full well when those days are. As a teacher, if your group member doesn't show up to class and they don't, get a sub and you're left with doing extra work, they're going to feel that. They understand that correlates directly to the teaching career. So they get that feeling. You don't have to hound them about it. It's in their family sometimes. Some people are like, oh, honey, you're not going to make any money. You're going to be super stressed. Maybe they have a teacher in the family that's telling them that, which is really sad. But maybe they just don't have any educators in their family. They don't understand that this person has a teaching heart. Like this is a calling for them. So this is why that community is a big part of EdRISING. That brings these guys all together. So my gosh, I just totally got off on a tangent. I don't even know what I was talking about. But anyway, competitions. We want them to compete. We want them to have that community of teachers. I think that is one of the things that my kids have always said is those experiences have helped them stay the course, have made them feel like they're on the right track. There are other people that are doing that and thinking the same thing. So competitions. This link is live in the slide deck that I shared with you guys. I'm also going to send it to you guys in email. This is where you're going to get all of the details about competitions, okay? You're going to make sure that you click on this competition schedule and you save this somewhere, favorite this somewhere. I don't know what you need to do, but make sure you save this information, because as you start to plan for the competitions, if you didn't already do some, prep work for the EdRISING moment, which we just had, or had some, things, this is where you're going to look. The competition registration link is here for signing up for competition, okay? And then here's all the details. So let's look at October. All the details about, do you guys see the competition first of all? Do you see the competition schedule on the screen? Okay, good. All the way over to the right is the deadline for signing up and uploading your pre-score items, okay? Important. That's something that a lot of people kind of like missed the boat on with this last one. They were like emailing us the day after saying I didn't get to register, whatever. So we're going to be very clear moving forward. Deadline for registration, the date of the competition, all the way over to the left. You click on these linked names of the competitions, you will get the information about that competition. It pops up. The first 6 pages is just information for you. We're going to be talking about this at our PLC. We're going to go into competitions more detail, but the first 6 pages of this is general competition information. You read it the first time and then you don't have to read it again. Just jump down to the page where it says the competition's name, right? Those first few pages are really important for national competition and for competing in general, but it relates to every competition that they will ever compete in. So once they kind of get the gist of what the competitions are all about and what to expect in a general capacity, they want to go to the guts. They want to go to the stuff that really matters, the creative lecture part. And to be honest, I sometimes resave these. I downloaded as a teacher, I downloaded these and save them as a PDF and cut out those beginning pages because sometimes the students would just get bogged down with like all the details, and just started with page 6 and just had them start on page 6 to read the content about the thing. Anyway, this is the standards that match for that competition, the purpose, the prompt. So this is like a TED Talk competition. Creative lecture is what they call it, but it's similar to a TED Talk. They give you a topic and then you have to like talk about that. So this is talking about reimagining schools for the future. And then, there's competition guidelines, what you need to do. There's the creative lecture rubric, so pre-scored components, and then the components of the scores on site. And then presentation rubric criteria, overall length. There is a scoring sheet that you can just circle this area where they got their score, make and write comments on it at the bottom. So for you, if you do this as a lesson plan, this is your part, right? This is your grading part. This is the part that's easy. It's already set up for you, already divided up into organization, overall impact, all of that. And then they have a rubric. I literally, I feel like my class is the first class that my kids ever have exposure to a rubric. I don't know why that is. It's probably not true, but I am constantly teaching my kids how to read a rubric. And this is such a good practice for them. I'm like, forget about the 4 through 1 column. Don't even look at that one. Just look at the 15 to 13 column and say, I'm going to build my speech to include all of these things. Don't even look at that stuff down there. I don't want a 4 through 1. I want my 15. So this is really good from a teaching standpoint, again, to talk about how you can teach with a rubric, how grading works with a rubric, and how that works for teachers. So this is just some information about the competition. So you'll see that here when you go to the bottom, and this here says December. This is when all of these December competitions will open for signups, is on November 21st. Okay. When you scroll to the bottom, some details about Maryland competitions. Then you're going to have a more specific list about the pre-scoring items that you need to submit. Okay. So I do want to click on this because this is so amazing. If you're just starting out to use competitions, this cheat sheet is heaven sent. Let me see if I can make it a little bigger for you guys. I use this still to this day. I know the competitions and I still look at it and go, what do we need to turn in for pre-scoring? What do we need to turn in for whatever? Every single competition listed tells you if it's a individual competition or a team competition. It tells you what levels it's available, what you have to submit for the pre-score part, what happens on site or during the virtual meeting, right? So it's either in person or virtual in Maryland. And then how much time you need as a judge, how much time that they're going to take, what kind of AV, and then the awards that are. But this pre-scoring and on-site part, crucial, so good, and so good, such good information for you to have. But I have broken that down for you guys in this, where in order of the competition dates. So the next ones that are coming up are creative lecture and interactive bulletin board. The dates, the signups open date, they're open now for that. And then the deadline to turn in your pre-scoring components. And then what you have to submit. A PDF of your speech must be uploaded. An extra period, let me fix that. And then for interactive bulletin board, you need a PDF of the summary sheet. The summary sheet is 200 to 300 words, which includes these things. Super specific, right? This is telling you just the pre-scoring stuff so that you know when you go to sign up, this is what your students have to have ready. Like they have to have this ready to upload on their sign up sheet day. So they can't just sign up and then spend the whole next week getting ready for the competition. They have to be ready at least the week before, right? When they sign up, because the competition closes a week before the sessions start. So this is just some, some detailed information that you would need about competitions, okay? These are all the competitions that we have and the competitions and the contests that we offer. Just, for your information. These are all the competitions and then the links to the guidelines. That is on our competition schedule, so you don't need to worry about this, but if you want to click on them here, you can. And this is where you find them inside the portal. I'm going to show you that live in just a second, but you'll go to where it says Educators Rising High School Resources, and then you will click on this National Conferences and Competitions Resources, and you'll click on a blue link that says learn more about competitions and view competition guidelines, or the educator. All of these blue links, all these blue words will take you to a link. So that's where you get more information. Here's some linked resources from me to you, the competition schedule, the cheat sheet, and then just some more competition overview kind of stuff for you to have. Micro-credentials are another thing that you have access to. It is through Digital Promise, and this is a great thing to do with your seniors or your level, like your internship levels or your level 3s. They can go through the process of earning micro-credentials, and they pay $75 and they get some college credit. Something that you can just learn more about. You can click on that link to learn more about it. I'm not going to go too much into it now. We'll talk about it at one of our PLCs, but there are different topics. So like they can earn a little badge for lesson design, formative assessments, effective classroom leadership, those kind of things. And some of them are free. I think this one's free and this one's free, lesson design and effective classroom leadership. And the other ones are $75, and they earn a little certificate, and they can submit it. They earn a certificate through Digital Promise, and they can submit it to their college to get some college credit for it. You just have to find out if, not all colleges will accept it, or if they'll like substitute a course for it or something, but it is really, it's still really cool that they can do it themselves. And it's like a whole package. So like sometimes I assign the free ones to my higher level students. We used to have something called, it was kind of like it was a research course where we actually, everybody did something different. So we'd have them each pick one of the free ones and do that as part of their process. Now we don't do that because now we're doing the CDA, so we have a specific course for everything. But in that one, it was kind of almost like a make your own sort of course where you picked your research project and you did like a case study, and then you also did some other things that you could kind of pick. So it was really well done, those credentials. One of the students that I had for the credentials, she was able to use her, those credentials as a way for her to get into the education program. Like they do the first 2 years at a university, and then they have to actually apply for the education program and get in. Sometimes, they have to show their portfolio or whatever it is from their beginning courses. But being a part of EdRISIng and doing competitions and doing those things, and then her Digital Promise credentials made her a candidate, like allowed her to become part of the education program earlier than she would have normally, which I thought was really great. There are clinical experience resources here. We're going to talk about this more when we get into that in our PLCs, but there are some frameworks for that. I know you can click on these links and it'll take you to that part of the website. There are It's not as formal as our lesson plan situation. Like we don't have like lesson plans associated for each of the clinicals, but there are tools and resources there for to help you, like sign-in sheets, teacher, mentor teacher contracts, and things like that. Just different things that you could use to help with. This assessment platform, I'm not going to really get into, but this, some schools use this. In Maryland, I don't think we really need to use it. We all use an LMS in Maryland, which is like the Canvas or Google or whatever it is. And when I try to use this, so that what this kind of is you can you can kind of make a classroom for your kids and post the assignments in there, and then it will help you grade it or keep track of the grades. Well, in some regard, that might be good if you don't have an LMS system, but we have Canvas and I could just grade them right in Canvas. And then it linked right with Synergy. I didn't, all I did was click sync and it would sync right into Synergy and their grades would go in there. This was an extra step for me, like kind of cool that all of their EdRISIng lessons were there. But since we're not using it the way that Texas uses it or Utah uses it or whatever, we can, it just was one added step. I could have them graded in there and then I had to go back in there and get their grade and put it into Synergy. And that just was not helpful. So it's there for you guys, but don't worry about it. Okay. Stop sharing. I'm going to show you in real life, real time. Okay. Share a different screen. Pop into the chat any questions you have so far. I know this is a lot of information. Make this bigger so I can see you guys. As soon as I start sharing. Can you see what looks like the EdRISIng portal? Okay. Okie doke. Any questions? Okay. So when you first log in to the portal, and again, many of you will not have access to this just yet. Once we get that contract stuff worked out, we're gonna all have a party, and then we're gonna get into the curriculum. But first, I'm just going to show you how to do it. And honestly, you don't have to remember. when we get access to the curriculum, you can email me, you can text me and say, how do I do that again? You can relook at the slide deck and find out how you do it again, whatever you want to do, but I'm certainly here to help you. I'm just going to show you where some of these resources are, okay? When you first log in, you'll see your name up here. It says Shannon McKenzie for me. You know you're logged in if it says your name. It could say log in, and if it says that means you still need to log in. And I'm the first one to admit this is not the most user-friendly website. I'm a teacher, and I don't find it to be as easy to navigate as I think it should be. But who am I to say? You're going to mostly focus on this menu all the way over to the left. Mine is like highlighted green, and it says home, right? So you're going to look at that. This front page, honestly, just ignore that. It should say home. And then you're going to kind of scroll down. The first thing I'm going to point out to you is this box that says Educator EdRISIng High School Resources. When you click on that little plus there, I think I need to make this a little bigger. Let's see. This might be better, yeah. So when you click on this little plus, like a little sub menu pops open, right? You guys know how that works. The student resources, so you're going to see on your menu is student resources and teacher leader resources. I have access to these other things. Well, you're also going to see student assessment platform. But again, we're going to kind of ignore that for now. But you're not going to have this state regional coordinator thing. Student resources and teacher leader resources. Your students will only see the one that says student resources. So theirs is going to look very much like this, but they're going to have a box that says student resources, and that's it. So you can click on that and see what your students what do your students see? Well, this is what they see. Student resources, like all the different things that may be appropriate. Remember I told you they have access to the articles and the videos and stuff themselves. They're all linked right here. Leadership opportunities for them, descriptions about those opportunities, student voice opportunities. They do surveys to the kids all the time. Why have you decided to be a teacher? Why might you decide not to be a teacher? What's one of the things that frustrates you about wanting to be a teacher? Like sometimes they have things that you can speak to, those polls. There's the Kaplan magazine, student edition, ideas for projects, scholarship opportunities, just all the things. Okay, that's the student. You're going to see that the teacher one looks very similar to that, teacher resources. This is all the things that you have access to as a chapter leader. Like this is where your chapter stuff is, right? This is where all the free stuff is. At the top here, I love that they did this, to be honest. I could never find the chapter roster. I don't know how they hid it before, but now they have a link here. So thank God they did that. But you can find your roster by doing that because I could never find the chapter roster page. And so they put a quick link at the top. Thank God they did that. Again, not as user-friendly as I would like it to be. Um, they have a program of work, the dates to know, I don't know, W-9, competition rubrics right there, and the Facebook group. Just some like kind of quick things that you might need as a teacher leader. And then just all the other stuff, the membership certificate, information about nationals, uh, information about how to register for students. We'll talk about that at the next PLC. If you need 3 videos and 10 PowerPoints to register your students, there's something not right about that, just saying. I've made it a little bit simpler in my PowerPoint that we'll use next week. And then just like chapter resources, the program of work. This is all stuff that we've already talked about and that we're working on together. So it's not stuff that you absolutely need to find all the time, but teaching channel videos, professional development resources, just all the things. This is all the chapter stuff, okay? Again, good to know where that is. That's where you're going to find all the things to do with the chapter stuff. Quite honestly, I've taken the stuff we really need and put it into our little website that we have, or I've given it to you in another format so you don't just have to like scroll down these long lists of things to like find everything. But how do you find the curriculum? The curriculum's not in there because curriculum is an added tab that you probably will not see if you were in there right now, or if you're in there, the last couple weeks, you did not see a tab for curriculum. So let's go back up here and shut that little box, right? So remember, this is the green one here. It says Educators Rising High School Resources. You go down about 1, 2, 3, 4 tabs, and you may have the tab that says Educators Rising Curriculum and Implementation. This is where you're going to find our lessons, okay? Again, this is not as user-friendly as I'd like it to be, but getting started in support, 25 to 28 curriculum, EdRISing assessments, implementation support, and then teaching fundamentals. Where you're going to live when you're using this curriculum is in this spot here where it says 25, 28 curriculum, okay? But again, if you start with the crosswalk, you will almost never need to find the curriculum this way, because when you open a lesson in the crosswalk, it'll go right to the right lesson that you need. So for example, these little black boxes here that kind of float, you'll see year 1 lessons and year 2 lessons. Year 1 lessons are 1 through 5, and year 2 lessons are units 6 through 10, okay? And you'll see that here. So, right, year 1, unit 1 through 5. And there's like an overall unit. We're not focusing too much on that unit because we're not teaching these in units. These are fully functional lessons. They don't build on each other. They don't depend on the last one to do the next one. So you can just go through and find, let's just go down. We're going to scroll down a little bit. Let's just go see this little black box, year 1 lessons. It'll take us right to year 1 lessons, okay? So we're going to scroll down, year 1 scope and sequence, but you can see here, year 1 scope, unit 1, foundations of teaching. That's a little description of the whole unit. Then you have the lessons, planning your year with Educators Rising, growth mindset, building student confidence. These are each individual PowerPoints, each lesson on these topics, reflection and metacognition. Those are all the choices you have for that unit 1, okay? So growth mindset will be under unit 1. Okay. Then when you look at growth, let's say you're going to teach about growth mindset, or that's one of the ones you want to teach or something. You're going to click on the PowerPoint with the teacher notes, right? And then here's the worksheet. Remember the guided notes worksheet I talked about? That's the separate little tab that you click on. So let's open up this one and I'll just show you. Oh gosh, I forgot. Here's a quick trick. I use Chrome. When you use Chrome, it's going to download it for you. Like it gives you a download. It doesn't give you a preview screen. I always forget to go into Microsoft Edge before I do this training session. If you use Microsoft Edge, like a preview will pop up first, but I digress. Let me open up this PowerPoint. If you use Google Chrome, it'll download a copy for you, and then it'll make you open it. Did it open? Where did it go? Oh, it's thinking. I might have too many tabs open. Here it comes. Okay. So this is what the growth mindset slide deck looks like, right? Remember I told you. So then here, up here, it says enable editing. Once I click that, then it's my slide deck. I'm not messing anybody else's slide deck up. It is mine, and I'm going to save it on my computer somewhere. It is mine. Again, if you use Microsoft Edge, I actually recommend that to start with, because you can just preview them and you won't just have all these random things downloading to your computer, right? You only really want to download them once you know you're going to teach that one. You know, I want to look at growth mindset and see if I even like it, right? I don't know. So, but I'm using Chrome, so it'll download for you. Anyway, once you click this little box, it is your slide deck. You're not messing up anybody else's. It's yours to keep, to delete, to do whatever. Lesson objectives. This one is going to, go over the note-taking process and tell them, guys, look for this red clipboard to, to do. And there's day one. There's the day one warm-up. Here you can see that these are the notes, right? You can see that notes for teacher, notes for students, and then the reference about where they got that information and why that, they taught that. The warm-up in this one is like a strongly agree, disagree kind of question thing. And then you just keep going with the content, and then you'll see, so there's 15 slides for day one. That's a lot of content, right? That's one day. So when they say they have a 3-day slide deck, that really could be 5 days. It could be 2 weeks, really, if you spread it out. But there's a formative assessment last. There's a brain-changing activity in there. So and then you go to day 2. And what's first on day 2? The warm-up. Okay, so these are what this like. Oh, you don't see it? You're not seeing that? Oh, I'm talking and it's not showing. Thank you for telling me that. Oh, because it opened in a different screen. Hold on. Let me get to it. Thank you for telling me. I do that all the time. I'm like, see guys, see what I mean? Now you can see it, right? Okay, good. All right, so let's go back. So at the very beginning, it has the growth mindset, the topic, then the objectives for the lesson, right? And then this is like guided. This is just telling them the first few lessons, like the unit 1 lessons, usually have like a little description of what you do with the guided notes worksheet, just to kind of remind the students what they're doing. Once you get into like the second year or a higher level, they know what the clipboard means. Day 1, warm up, right? I'm going to make this is about the content, what is intelligence, and then make this bigger, notes to teacher, notes to students, right? There's that script, and then the stuff you need to know about this topic if you don't know already. And then, as I said, I went all the way to the end, 15 slides, and there's the formative assessment, okay? There's activities in here that you can do. There's a discussion, right? Neuroplasticity activity, discussion topic, and then there's the assessment. That's just for day 1. To be honest, I probably would not be able to get through all of that in day 1 in my 45-minute class. So this is a lot of content, and it's really easy to just go through and delete. Okay, this one, we're not going to talk about that. It doesn't really have the topic I need, whatever. But there was some good stuff in here out of the 3-day that I could pull and use. So that is for you. And then there's the same thing. It goes up day 2, and then day 2, actually, sorry. And then the last things are all the references for these slides, and nobody really needs to know about that. But the revisit the lesson objectives, right? And then day 3, formative assessment. It's just the same format for everything. And then the very last slide is usually the one that revisits the lesson objectives. Did we meet these objectives when we learned about this topic, guys? And that's, again, reiterating to them what you want to do when you actually lesson plan. So that's what a slide deck looks like. And then this is what a guided worksheet looks like. I'm going to have to make sure I'm sharing the right box. Okay, so this one. All right. Can you see the growth mindset worksheet? Okay. Make it a little bigger, because I don't know. I'm blind. I don't know. You guys are probably younger than me, but I'm blind. This is the worksheet for growth mindset. It's tied specifically to that lesson, okay? And you can see here, they can just type whatever they want in the answer boxes, right? So this is their own version of this. This is describe successful intelligence and how it encapsulates a growth mindset. Remember, that's one of the slides. Now, if you chose not to use the entire thing, like, because this is the whole slide deck, right? If you chose not to use the entire thing, then you can just say, answer the neuroplasticity slide or questions, or do the assessment at the end, or whatever, like however you want to do it, you can do that. Also, this guided notes worksheet is specific to day one. So if you want to just use their 1-day slides, this is a 1-day slide guided notes worksheet. And that's an option too. So let me go back and make sure I'm sharing that screen. So do you see the lessons again on the screen, like just the box? Okay. So this is what it looks like when you're kind of perusing the whole thing. You can click on Unit 2, and then you have all the lessons for under Unit 2. This is not, this is not the way that you would do it for a resource. It would take you so much time to go through and try to match up things, right? If you were using this to its full capacity, like those other states that don't have TAM or CDA, you would just start with Unit 1 and teach Lesson 1, right? And go to Lesson 2 and then keep going. But we're not doing it that way. So that's why it's really important for us to look at the crosswalk, to use, oh, stop sharing, hold on. Go back over here. It's important for us to use the crosswalk because I've already done that work for you to kind of like narrow it down. Okay. So just keep that in mind. But you can certainly go through once you have access, go through those lessons and see if there's more content that you would like. I just don't see any of us having time to do that. Like if you have a lot of free time, just let me know and you can come and weed my garden or something. I don't know. But, but I don't see anybody having that kind of time, to be completely honest. I know how busy you guys are. So that's why the crosswalk is going to be good. But that's just what the website is going to look like. And it'll take you to, growth mindset. And you'll see that page, you'll see that lesson there. But it's good to know that it exists or what it looks like. Okay. So this is the reminder to use Microsoft Edge. Is preferable just because it's all Microsoft like PowerPoint stuff. And when you click on it, it actually brings up a preview and you can even click through the slides and then you can just close it if you don't like that one. I don't tend to use Microsoft Edge, but all of you guys in Harford County, you must be using Microsoft Edge because you can't use Google anything over there. They locked you down. Anyway, we are almost done. This is just a reminder of how you log in. Once you get the curriculum, I'm not really going to hone on that too much. If you have the curriculum, you got an email from Vicki Anthony with the login information. That's or you will get that. You can always search for Vicki Anthony's email to find it. And then it's your email and your password. This is just a refresher on how to find the curriculum. When you get the curriculum and you forget all of the stuff I've just talked to you about, this shows you exactly what to do and where to click. And that's really it. This is for you to join the Facebook groups, just teacher groups for helping with the curriculum and helping with chapters. Okay. So if you're on Facebook, it was a great idea to join these. I encourage you to do it. I always see, I've been doing this a while, but I always see cool new stuff that they're doing with the curriculum, and then cool new stuff that teachers are doing for fundraising is always the big one. I love fundraising ideas. So like fundraising is always the one that gets me on that one. And that's really it. Questions. I think, you guys are going to do great. It's using the crosswalk is going to be your key to this. Like using the crosswalk is going to be the easiest way to plan and to really, maneuver through this whole process. So just, use the crosswalk to find what matches what you're already teaching. All right. Any questions? How do you guys feel about it? Lots of good resources though, right? Some cool stuff. I've taught the lessons before, and obviously I was teaching early childhood, and a lot of stuff matches up. It's not super obvious, like, from the get-go, but a lot of stuff matches up, and it's great stuff. My kids enjoyed the lessons. They enjoyed the guided notes things. It was easier for them. I didn't have to print out any worksheets. I didn't have to recreate the wheel and put that in Canvas and make my own worksheet or whatever. So lots of resources. Definitely use the videos, use the competitions, and those Cap'n magazines. I can't really hype those up enough. I love them. They give you all of the things that you need. Any questions? Nope. Lots of resources. Lots of resources. Good. I know you guys are tired at the end of the day. You've heard enough of me yapping at you. I know. I love to see you guys, but I know I'm the last person you guys want to see after you've taught all day. So thank you guys for coming today. Let me know if you have any questions. I'm going to send you these slides in a link, so that you have it accessible and you can save it in your favorites or wherever you want to save it. And then when it gets to the time to actually get access to the curriculum, for those of you that don't have it, you can also just hit me up and tell me Ooh, I forgot everything you told me. What do I need to do? Where do I need to go? All right. So, yeah, lots to explore. Yeah. Yeah. As soon as we get that contract signed, Audrey. You're welcome, everybody. Have a great night.
I have a real quick question.
Sure.
Two of my students signed up for the competition, so they should be ready to go. We are in the process. They re-imaged all of our computers here, so some of the computers don't have full capacity, like to send documents and things. I did send over what we could for the competition, but I just wanted you to be on the lookout that sometimes I'm a little nervous because they're going to be at home and they're going to be logging on. So that's making me a little nervous with
So
the
what
fact
I would do is have them, they're going to be at home using like their school Chromebooks.
well, we have Microsoft, we have Dell computers,
Okay.
but they also have, we gave them their TAM iPads. The tech people have been here all day. Like, for example, like I, my PDF files are I can't do a PDF right now. Neither can my students.
Oh, geez.
We can't, they couldn't search on Google on their iPads. Like it's a lot that they're trying to figure out because they re-imaged all of our computers right before school. And so we're working on it, but they have said that they've been working yesterday and today because I told them by Monday, we need to be ready to go. We made our competitions Tuesday so
Yeah.
that we would have that extra day, but they've been working here to try to make sure that the TAM computers as well as the iPads are both working, and that they have access to the Zoom. It's going to be on Zoom, correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So what I would do is I would like maybe, as they're working on this, maybe Monday morning or Friday afternoon or something. And Friday's tomorrow. So, but like
Yeah,
Monday morning, maybe have them try to log in to a Zoom session, just see what it tells them to do. Sometimes when haven't logged into Zoom for a long time, it makes you download the updates and all that stuff, just so they don't
right,
stress out. So they don't stress out that day, and they're like, "I've got to compete at 5:30," and they're like, "Oh no, now it's downloading everything." Just
right.
have them do all of that on Monday. Make sure that they can get.
That's well, they've been we actually did a dry run today and they couldn't get on a Zoom at all. So
Oh,
then we were I called the tech person in and said, hey, they have I have two students competing, their top priority. So I just wanted you to know that if for some reason they don't specifically log on that day, exactly what's going on here. Abby says that she's going to try to do it from her personal computer, but Liz doesn't have a personal.
mhm.
And they're both be home that day. I mean, they have to do it at that time because they're not with me.
Yeah.
So we're working on it. I just wanted you and Libby
Yeah.
to be aware that Zoom is not typically our platform that we're allowed to use.
Oh,
However, we have it's Teams, it's
mhm.
or Google Meets, but not Zoom. So we've been working on that for competition. They know the Board of Ed knows that my students have to be able to access Zoom. So they've been in here all day today working on it, trying to get it. I mean,
Yeah.
my seniors go out this week and they need to have that ability to um, take their iPads and scan in and do all those things and they have no access. It's like, what in the world? So
Yeah.
I just wanted you to be aware. All of my students did the rising moment in my classroom and we did it for a grade. And then they were able to choose if they wanted to compete.
Oh, good.
So I let the two choose to compete, but I did want you to be aware and Libby to be aware if there's any kind of hesitation. I'm more worried about Liz than I am Abby because I'm sure Abby has the resources to get on something else.
Well, if, again, try it again, maybe,
Yeah.
Monday and see.
Mhm.
And if,
Well, they're coming in tomorrow. They're coming back to me
okay.
tomorrow, and they said they were going to work on it Monday and Tuesday morning. So that's
Oh,
why
good.
we made their competitions on,
That was smart.
yeah,
Well, I'm
Tuesday.
sorry
So
that's so frustrating for you guys. I know we just have like lots of those little things. Like some people, we're sending Google links but their county wouldn't let us see them, like their document, because it wouldn't let us see them. So we had like lots of glitchy things happen with this first competition. It always does. It always does. That's why we try to get this one out of the
Right.
way and everybody kind of gets their jitters out. But we had lots of issues like that. That's why we're saying, they all need to be PDFs, because you send a Google link and
It
your
doesn't
county
open.
blocks it so we can't see it, and
Right.
it
Well,
ends up being all this stuff.
I ended up sending it just as a Word document because I had no PDF, but I didn't have a choice.
Yeah.
And I figured, oh well, if I get knocked for it, but there's nothing else I can do until they get my PDF file working. It's telling me I'm blocked. It's telling me I don't have the access. And I'm not the only one. It's everybody that I got a new computer. Mine crashed. So everybody that got these new computers or had their computers re-imaged, we're all going through this. So,
Mm.
and they got rid of, because we're in a budget crunch, they got rid of 3 of our techs. And
Oh,
so now our infusion specialists have to pick up the techs slack. So just bear with us. I'm really excited. I mean, the students, they all have, I kind of want to brag a minute. And I know you've got to go, but I want to brag a minute. All my seniors, I decided to let all of them be officers because I only have
yeah.
6.
Yeah.
And so they all chose well, we talked about positions, what the position would look like, and then they had to vote on which person they thought would be best for which position. So
Oh,
that's how we did it. And then they've made posters, mini posters that we're going to put up on our wall, that says what their role is.
oh, nice.
And so we are moving in the right direction for that.
Yay, that's
Um,
exciting.
Yes, I'm still working on what to do with my afternoon students, because we're down to we're down to a 45-minute block,
Mhm.
um, where I don't have them at another time.
Yeah.
So, and giving up, and I'm going from a 85-minute block to a 45. So
Wow.
yeah, it's really a struggle. So, and it's not extended, like it's not like I have them year long. It's half a year. So it's just trying to get that content in that short period of time. But um I'm trying to think outside the box. What we think we're going to do is have once every 4 weeks, have some of my seniors who don't have classes, and you can let me know if this is okay,
Mhm.
come in and talk to them about Educators Rising and the things that we're doing, just so that we're including them. I don't know that they could be full-blown like members to be able to compete in all of those things because there's just not the time, but giving them that exposure to what it is so that at the end of the year, we
Yeah.
can have them all ready to roll when they come to us.
Yeah, and also
So,
it would sell some of them to maybe stay with the program. Like, oh, they get to go to the conference and they get to do this and they get to do that. It's like it could be sort of reason for them to kind of stick around and do their senior year and stay with the program and stuff. So like
right,
also they're hearing it firsthand. Like the seniors, that peer-to-peer exposure and like experience sharing is so, it's so worth it. They really get a good feel for it. They'll tell the truth, right? They're like, it was really fun, or it was hard, but then I won first place, so it was worth it, whatever it was. Um,
right. And then there was one other thing I wanted to share. I got permission, well, almost full permission to go to the fall leadership. I
oh,
just have one piece. I sent an email to Libby, but it doesn't appear that there are any meals provided for breakfast. There won't be any food there, correct, for breakfast, because my students are getting on the bus prior to meals served here. I have
mm.
to have a plan. So that's why I reached out to her the other day. I can't do the permission slip till I know.
So we're gonna
So
have lunch. They will serve them lunch.
yes, but no breakfast, correct?
There isn't going to be any formal breakfast, but I think I remember him saying he would have like, he could have like breakfast bars and stuff kind of laid out as people were coming in and that kind of stuff. So they're not going to be like a formal meal time, but just since some of them are going to be arriving at different times based on where they're coming from. He may have
Okay.
some little snacky breakfast items laid out. And
Okay.
I can also make sure that that happens. Like I can go to Sam's Club and make sure we have like granola bars and breakfast, just for those students that didn't get a chance to have that, just for them.
Right. We just have to include it in our letter to parents. That was the one component we were missing. And because, like I said, because we are, if we were leaving at 7:20 or later, they could get a grab and go breakfast here.
Yeah.
Because our cafeteria is open, but we don't have that option. So we have to come up with a plan B, and it has to be in our parent permission letter. The other
Mhm.
thing is I got my son, because I can't open the PDF. I was able to get my son at his computer business to open up and print the PDF for the permission slips
Mhm.
for the kids to be able to go. Is it possible for me to upload all those permission slips? Like, how am I going to
The
get those?
photography one, the photography,
Yes.
you can just
Uh-huh.
bring them. Just sign them and bring them.
Okay,
You don't have
so
to download them. You
it'll
can.
let me, okay, it'll let me finish the document without uploading the form.
I think so.
Okay,
I have told and I asked Dr. Vic about that, and he said that you guys can just bring them with you. But
okay,
I will check and make sure if that's a required field, I will change it now.
okay. I wasn't sure. I just know that when we were in the process of looking, my principal was looking at it, and I went and, like I said, I got my son to print out the paper so that I had the PDF. But I'm going to attach that to the permission slip and send that home. I'd like to do it tomorrow. So, I mean, I'd like to send it home tomorrow. So I'll just add the thing that there will be
Yeah,
light
yeah, there's gonna be like a breakfast snacks table or whatever. I don't know.
breakfast snack table. Okay.
However you want to, you can say
That's,
the,
I'm going to say breakfast snack table will be available, but
yeah.
not, but students can bring their own breakfast, um, to eat at the conference or eat before, during that getting to know you part. Because we're not allowed to eat in the van. I get to take the new van. So we're not allowed to eat in the van. So, okay. Well, thank you so much. I'm sorry I kept you these
Just
extra
fix, oh
minutes.
no, I just fixed the form and it is
Oh,
now,
great.
no, I'm gonna actually make a note there. You can bring it with you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. That'll save, because I wasn't sure how we were going to get each of the students to upload their
Yeah.
forms.
I just fixed that. So now it is updated that it's not a required field. So you'll be able to submit without that. But because that does limit when it's required, it limits you having to be able to
Okay.
submit.
And one more thing, and then I promise I'll leave you alone. I know I'm so excited, and I'm overwhelming you, but
No, it's
my students, we're going to try to bring all 6 of my students. However, they have to be in good academic standing at their home high school. So we're going to register them, and then I can let you know an updated number closer to the time. But
of
all of
course.
them should be able to, I mean, like, I'm hoping that all of them will be able to participate. There are 2 that I'm a little nervous about, but I know 4 of them should be fine.
Okay. Yeah, that's
Thank
perfect.
you so very much, and you have a wonderful day. Thank you for staying on for a few minutes.
Of course. Have a great night.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye bye.